A person who, by the formal decree of a court, has been declared subject to be proceeded against under the bankruptcy laws or entitled, on his voluntary application, to take the benefit of such laws.
Right, so again, it is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, declared by President Roosevelt, being bankrupt and insolvent. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States government offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists in name only. So the so-called government exists only in a name. If the government exists only in a name, then so do all the United States governmental offices exist only in a name. Officers exist only in a name. Departments exist only in a name. And if they exist only in a name, it's because they're dissolved and they have no body politic behind them. So for somebody now to say, claim the birth certificate in order to, and then they go into this elaborate thing about what you're getting when you claim the birth certificate. All that stuff that you're getting is based in bankruptcy, dissolution, and insolvency. How is that benefiting anybody being involved in that? How is there any, how is somebody conceptually going to talk about be a secured creditor when the thing that the instrument that you're using to become a secured creditor comes from a bankrupt, insolvent, dissolved corporation? Obviously, what's there isn't there. So, what is it that they are really going after? Right? What are they really going after? Because there's nothing there. We know that there's nothing there. So since there's nothing there, then there has to be something that is feeding this, that's keeping this alive. Now again, we talk to Moors, we know Moors who went through these processes. And the Moors that went through these processes, by the time they got to at the end of it, writing all their 180-page writs and stuff like that, 200-page writs, 500-page writs, right? This is all part of the whole process of, you want to claim birth certificate? All right, cool. This is what the process is. There's what? Personally, there's one more who I know that went through the process from claiming the birth certificate to the end, getting checks, and he still said, forget doing that. And he got checks.
And he's getting checks.
Said, forget that process. That process has nothing to do with anything. It's still gonna go right back to what's your nationality. And for everybody who doesn't know, that individual is Toriano Obashango L. And you go ask him about 180-page writs. Let's see how many people have the balls to do a 180-page writ.
And he didn't copy none of that from the
And he
website.
didn't go to no sovereign European classes or nothing like that. He studied UCCs. He said, forget whatever for 2 years or 3 years or whatever like that. And all his attention was devoted to, well, if this is the way that it's supposed to go, I'm going to go check this out and see if this is really what it is. And in him checking it out to see what it really is, it really was. But when you start not getting contact from these people who they say they've been paying checks and they stop contacting you, and then you find out that all these people who've been paying you out, they start getting, acts from their jobs or whatever, and then somebody else is now sitting in that seat that somebody, the person who before that was sitting in that seat, we had no problem sending you checks. Then now you're not getting checks now because somebody else is there. Same position, same paid grade, same whatever, but it's a different individual. Lets you know that these people are getting anybody who knows anything about Republic, whatever like that, get those people out the way. Because their main focus is vampirism and taking people's energy. How do they get people's energy? Luckily, some people know how to reserve their rights on contracts and stuff like that so they can protect themselves from getting sucked. Other people, they just, see a carrot and want to bite. Right? Yeah, one.
Well, but I think I realize what, at the end of this, which is the beginning of this, it's really about coming to one's own self-awareness and self-sufficiency within their nationality. And what the authentication of this birth certificate does, it came to me when you were talking about it with the bankruptcy, is he's made a statement in his definition there that the bankruptcy is the activity of the people who are owed coming to take your personal shit in payment of a probably non-personal shit per se. That's why corporations are set up. And what's interesting there is, and I've heard this saying before, and I don't know whether it was in the literature or not, that ultimately what we've been dealing with are a set of corporations coming and sucking out. Basically, America's bankrupt, and they're looking to get paid.
But U.S. is bankrupt.
U.S. is bankrupt, but they're using the items of the people,
right,
which is also the people, as the payment for the debt.
Yeah.
That's where this whole debt is continuing to come from. So what they're dealing with is a bankrupt situation. That's what's going on. You're watching a bankruptcy sale.
Right.
Right?
So
sorry, to step forward to what the authentication is for, is what they've realized is through, and we talked about this earlier, through the co-opting of the mother, to get her to sign off on the so-called infant minor to begin with. That was a contract that sort of could exist for a while within the dynamic of ignorance of the laws, no excuse to the mother. But at the age of so-called maturity and majority, let's say, of the actual heir or person, i.e. being natural person in question, they realize that they've got issues when it's going to come down to lawful adjudication. So the authentication of the birth certificate is the adult version of the validating of the dipping into the account, right? With some payoff to that person.
But the reality is that there's no payoff because it's bankrupt.
Well, 100%. But 100%. But what you've then done, you as the person have then validated and okayed the fraud, and said, "I'm a party to this fraud now."
Right. So the minors are coming of age.
Which isn't an of age thing, but it's a mental of age thing, right? That's where it becomes this really bizarre or sort of interconnected thing where things can't be told in words, right?
So the minors are coming of age.
Right.
And are realizing that their parent has sold them out. Right? Their parents sold them out and got this instrument called birth certificate. Right?
Which is what gave them, I guess, the mother's allowance, all that kind of stuff, right? Which is the payoff. Right? The baby bonus, all that stuff, right?
Now, before all that, this birth certificate contract is with the mother. Right? Mother's the one who, quote unquote,
signs off on
signed the contract. Right? This is what Brother Mario was talking about earlier. Peace, bro. This is what Brother Mario and I and Omar were talking about earlier. If the mother is the one who signed the birth certificate, then how is the minor, which remember, if they have a birth certificate, their minor
Still a minor.
is forever.
Exactly. See, that's it.
So how is a minor
Sorry, say
Coming of
that part
age.
again, a minor forever through what?
through the birth certificate?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right?
Well,
So-
through the acceptance of that birth certificate.
Right.
Because your status is on that.
Because your status is based on this,
Right.
not based on you came out your mom.
No.
Right.
Right.
Okay, go on.
So because your status is based on this, right? And the minor's name is on it, that means they're a minor forever,
Mhm.
right?
Through that contract.
Through that contract, right? So if the minor says file a UCC 1, and then they sign it, whether in their free national name or
Still
whatever,
a minor.
that's still a minor, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't have the power of an adult, right?
I can't
Now,
sign.
if the minor didn't sign the birth certificate, how could the minor sign to claim it?
Can't.
Well, but you know what I was thinking, interesting enough, the one connection that they do bring to the minor is the footprint,
That's
right? I think the footprint is almost and that's where the mother's collusion comes into this too, right?
Yeah.
Where she signs off on that, and he accepts the responsibility behind that footprint,
Right.
which is how they identify him, right?
Yeah.
Which seems really weird, because you gotta imagine that footprint ain't matching up to no 50-year-old man
Exactly.
later.
Right.
So it's really
Which goes back to the fraud again.
Right.
You know what I mean? It goes back to the whole concept again, that you're talking about a bankrupt, dissolved, insolvent instrument that somebody's trying to use as a legitimate
Instrument.
instrument
Right.
in order to get some benefit that they heard about.
Right.
Even though people have gotten the benefit, right? Even though people have gotten the benefit, but
the issue being that the benefit is there, but only still yet again in a fraudulent manner.
right. So that means it's not a benefit.
Right. But
Anything created in fraud remains fraud.
Right. But what we understand is that, and this is what comes back to, I think we were talking about this earlier, that it still steps back to beyond that, which is why are we even dealing with them with this crap to begin with? Because it's like we're sitting down at the dirty table.
Right.
There's no way out. There's no way out of the dirt.
There's no way out.
Unless you step back and create your own clean table.
Which is where Noujou Ali comes in,
Right.
and telling the Moors, if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality. Because as soon as you declare your nationality, all this birth certificates and socials and licenses, passports, and all those stuff become dead instruments.
But I think you need to.
Even though they're dead already, because they're created by insolvent bankrupt corporations.
But here's where I think it just came to me now, the trinity of those statements. The next statement he said was, once you come to this creation, because he knew this wasn't coming out of the so-called you're landing, you're here on the earth introduction, it was more going to be a process later on within your timeline. So he was saying, keep all old business in your old name,
Yeah.
and keep all new business in your new name. And that was to delineate and separate those two things, and making it very clear that those two things were not supposed to come together. And they have those sayings in certain of these holy books where they say you don't sew old cloth to new
Right,
material.
right.
That's
Don't
what
go-
all of these
yeah.
things are done in allegory, are saying that stuff has to be left. And then the third statement that he makes is you are to keep your old name, not to discard it, because there is a payoff to be had
Right.
for the fraudulent behavior that the corporations have done
Right.
in their activity, and you will be paid off in compound interest,
Right.
but at that point.
Right.
And not when you're connected to it, but connected to the estate of it,
Right.
to a
Now,
certain extent.
And then that statement is the one that they use as to why they should file the UCC.
Right.
Why
That's
they should
right.
go that
That's
route.
what I'm saying.
Because Noble Drew
That's
Ali
right.
said
That's right.
you're supposed to get paid out in
That's
there,
right.
and then when you
Right.
file the UCC, then you're gonna get paid out. The bank account is gonna
That's
be bottomless pit, and then you can discharge everything, buy anything or whatever, anything that you want.
So what again they've done is it's in the three-step phase to me, which is belief, faith, and fruition.
Right.
The belief that you are something greater creates the faith that you are something greater, which is the fruition. What these people have done is they've been giving you the facade of the pot of gold, which is a facade, and that being the answer to it right away, rather than making you understand that it has to come through the nationality
Right.
first.